The story of the envious man and of him who was envied. In a town of moderate size, two men lived in neighboring houses. But they had not been there very long before one man took such a hatred of the other and envied him so bitterly that the poor man determined to find another home, hoping that when they no longer met every day, his enemy would forget all about him. So he sold his house and the little furniture it contained and moved into the capital of the country, which was luckily at no great distance. About half a mile from this city, he bought a nice little place with a large garden and a fair sized court, in the center of which stood an old well. In order to live a quieter life, the good man put on the robe of a dervish and divided his house into a quantity of small cells, where he soon established a number of other dervishes. The fame of his virtue gradually spread abroad, and many people, including several of the highest quality, came to visit him and ask his prayers. Of course, it was not long before his reputation reached the ears of the man who envied him, and this wicked wretch resolved never to rest till he had in some way worked ill to the dervish whom he hated. So he left his house and his business to look after themselves and betook himself to the new dervish monastery, where he was welcomed by the founder with all the warmth imaginable. The excuse he gave for his appearance was that he had come to consult the chief of the dervishes on a private matter of great importance. What I have to say must not be overheard, he whispered. Command, I beg of you, that your dervishes retire into their cells as night is approaching and meet me in the court. The dervish did as he was asked without delay, and directly they were alone together, the envious man began to tell a long story, edging as they walked to and fro, always nearer to the well. And when they were quite close, he seized the dervish and dropped him in. He then ran off triumphantly, without having been seen by anyone, and congratulating himself that the object of his hatred was dead and would trouble him no more. But in this he was mistaken. The old well had long been inhabited, unknown to mere human beings, by a set of fairies and genii, who caught the dervish as he fell, so that he received no hurt. The dervish himself could see nothing, but he took for granted that something strange had happened, or he must certainly have been dashed against the side of the well and been killed. He lay quite still, and in a moment he heard a voice saying, Can you guess who this man is that we have saved from death? No, replied several voices. And the first speaker answered, I will tell you, this man, from pure goodness of heart, forsook the town where he lived and came to dwell here, in the hope of curing one of his neighbors of the envy he felt towards him. But his character soon won him the esteem of all, and the envious man's hatred grew, till he came here with the deliberate intention of causing his death. And this he would have done without our help the very day before the Sultan has arranged to visit his holy dervish and to entreat his prayers for the princess his daughter. But what is the matter with the princess that she needs the dervish's prayers? Asked another voice. She has fallen into the power of the genius Maimum, the son of Dimdim, replied the first voice. But it would be quite simple for the holy chief of the dervishes to cure her if he only knew. In his convent there is a black cat which has a tiny white tip to its tail. Now, to cure the princess, the dervish must pull out 7 of these white hairs, burn 3, and with their smoke perfume the head of the princess. This will deliver her so completely that Maimum, the son of Dimdim, will never dare to approach her again. The fairies and genies ceased talking, but the dervish did not forget a word of all they had said, and when morning came, he perceived a place in the side of the well which was broken and where he could easily climb out. The dervishes, who could not imagine what had become of him, were enchanted at his reappearance. He told them of the attempt on his life made by his guest of the previous day and then retired into his cell. He was soon joined here by the black cat of which the voice had spoken, who came as usual to say good morning to his master. He took him on his knee and seized the opportunity to pull 7 white hairs out of his tail and put them on one side till they were needed. The sun had not long risen before the Sultan, who was anxious to leave nothing undone that might deliver the princess, arrived with a last suite at the gate of the monastery and was received by the dervishes with profound respect. The Sultan lost no time in declaring the object of his visit, and leading the chief of the dervishes aside, he said to him, "Noble Sheikh, you have guessed perhaps what I have come to ask you." "Yes, sire," answered the dervish. "If I am not mistaken, it is the illness of the princess which has procured me this honor." "You are right," returned the Sultan, "and you will give me fresh life if you can by your prayers deliver my daughter from the strange malady that has taken possession of her. Let your highness command her to come here, and I will see what I can do." The Sultan, full of hope, sent orders at once that the princess was to set out as soon as possible, accompanied by her usual staff of attendants. When she arrived, she was so thickly veiled that the dervish could not see her face, but he desired a brazier to be held over her head and laid the 7 hairs on the burning coals. The instant they were consumed, terrific cries were heard, but no one could tell from whom they proceeded. Only the dervish guessed that they were uttered by Maimun, the son of Dimdim, who felt the princess escaping him. All this time, she had seemed unconscious of what she was doing, but now she raised her hand to her veil and uncovered her face. "Where am I?" she said in a bewildered manner, "and how did I get here?" The Sultan was so delighted to hear these words that he not only embraced his daughter but kissed the hand of the dervish. Then, turning to his attendants who stood round, he said to them, "What reward shall I give to the man who has restored me my daughter?" They all replied with one accord that he deserved the hand of the princess. "That is my own opinion," said he, "and from this moment I declare him to be my son-in-law." Shortly after these events, the Grand Wazir died, and his post was given to the dervish. But he did not hold it for long, for the Sultan fell a victim to an attack of illness, and as he had no sons, the soldiers and priests declared the dervish heir to the throne, to the great joy of all the people. One day, when the dervish, who had now become Sultan, was making a royal progress with his court, he perceived the envious man standing in the crowd. He made a sign to one of his wazirs and whispered in his ear, "Fetch me that man who is standing out there, but take great care not to frighten him." The wazir obeyed, and when the envious man was brought before the Sultan, the monarch said to him, "My friend, I am delighted to see you again." Then turning to an officer, he added, "Give him 1,000 pieces of gold out of my treasury and 20 wagon loads of merchandise out of my private stores, and let an escort of soldiers accompany him home." He then took leave of the envious man and went on his way. So this is the end of the story. If you have liked the story, so please subscribe to the channel. So thanks for listening and watching.